So people and processes, and like you said, so there are people that have to execute the processes. When a process, and I've seen this that all the companies are tied to a person, not a role, but a person. And this happens, I could give multiple examples. It is always done, especially if you have been antiquated or you've been acquisitory or you've been, And so my favorite story is that Nancy sends the invoices to the customer.
Because Nancy has to press send.
Yes.
Like that
Nancy
alone to me was like freaking
and she
baffling.
has to send it via email.
Yes.
And Nancy's been there 20 years. Nancy's great. Everyone loves Nancy. Nancy, but Nancy also deserves a vacation, and Nancy leaves early on Thursday because her daughter's graduating high school. This is a true story. And leaves on Thursday before the invoice gets sent. Now the product's gone. We're out the door, and sends the invoice. It doesn't get to it Thursday, and she's taking a long weekend, and she's not back until Tuesday morning. And when she gets back, she's obviously missed a few things. And so it's, that invoice will get out when it gets out. And there's we haven't given Nancy any reason to prioritize this invoice. We haven't given her, she has a to-do list like everybody else, and then it doesn't get out. And little do we know that this invoice doesn't go out probably until the end of the next week. And all of a sudden there will become real days within your days of sales outstanding where you have sent product, it hasn't been invoiced, and you're just letting your cash be borrowed longer. And again, not because Nancy is a bad employee, because Nancy wasn't set up for success to understand. And why does Nancy have to hit send? I mean, that's like where then I became what happens when Nancy retires? Who's going to do this then? And
we saw what happens when Nancy walks out the door.
Lauren, it was, and again, there are many Nancys across multiple companies that, we just have to call Stuart. Stuart's going to process it. Well, I'm assuming Stuart's allowed days off. Stuart takes vacations. Do we not do it? And then you start asking yourself the question, what do we do when Stuart's on vacation for 2 weeks? And the answer was nothing. We wait till he gets back. And it was genuine. It's genuine. And it's not because anyone's trying to do anything wrong, but it's the lack of understanding of the impact of those. Someone made that decision, had agency to make the decision. And because there's no visibility into how it impacts the company, when you talk about the visibility of, does anyone understand the implications of those decisions to not cover that or get that automated or the answer is no. No one, why would they? And then, by the way, back to the CFO. And again, now your head's of finance or even the people overseeing it. It's always been done this way. So why would I think it needs to change? We just need to go call the customer and make sure they pay us on time. Well, they don't even have an invoice yet. They don't know they're late. They're actually not late per contract.
They're not late because she didn't send it and they're on terms that are their sent date.
Yep.
All right, can I talk about Carla? I want to talk about Carla.
Yes.
So Carla is the unsung hero. Carla is an introverted, sweet woman who wants to solve customers' problems. When a customer has a problem with an order, Carla is the one that picks up the phone. And when Carla is sitting in a room and finally meets, because guess what? She doesn't know the finance person. And Carla has no relationship with the salespeople whatsoever because Steve and John and Karen haven't come into the office in 5 years. So Carla doesn't know when my customer calls me. And my customer calls me every other month with the same problem. I don't know who to go to. And when you ask Carla, this is the most it actually makes me a little emotional. When you ask Carla how she feels about it, she almost cries. She feels so personally responsible that she's not able to solve this customer's recurring problem. And the reality is she was off on an island in a function nobody paid attention to, who was never connected to the people who could help her solve this problem. And I feel for Carla, and I feel for all the service and support people who are really trying to do their best, but they're just not enabled to do it because they don't have visibility into who to even pick up the phone to, let alone a process that wouldn't require them to do that in the first place. Carla, poor thing. All right,
yes.
Give me another one.
So, we were talking about, it's, again, back to the invoice, because we're going to dive into, I know, like the customer issue, so to play off of Carla. So Ben is in supply. Ben is sending out an order and cannot, he's the one that's pulling the PO together in the warehouse, and he is trying to build it, ship it, because it has to go out by the weekend, because the sales team says it has to go out by the weekend, but we're missing parts of the order. Okay. And so he has to make a decision of, am I going to send this out now, knowing that this other product isn't going to be ready until Monday because the machine went down? Or should I send it knowing that I'm going to send it and someone else will figure it out, and at least a bulk of it will get there? I called the sales guy I called John and John says, yes, just send it. I'll let the customer know that this isn't coming. Again, we made these decisions based on us running the business. Great. And then no one's the wiser because the customer was okay with it. Operations knows we'll send this sometime next week. Great. That went out the door. And that's fine. Right. And so you, at one side, been great. Way to, I want to applaud hey, at least you called somebody and you talked to the salesperson and John said, yes, let's do it. And you two made that decision. And look at that collaboration. It's great. And the customer's not mad. Well, it gets there. And so, but it's attached to an invoice that got sent because no one told Nancy that it changed. So she invoices for what it's supposed to be on the PO because he couldn't print it to change it. So people understood it, but it was never documented. There wasn't a process. So now customer gets it, finance team, they're like, well, we didn't get that. So we're short paying it when it comes to pay, but no one tells the finance team either. So our finance team is trying to reconcile cash and can't and so now finance goes back to John and says, John, your customer is not paying this. I remember that Ben, so now you created this doom loop of chaos of which Ben will never know that what he did had this impact. Nor did he do it, in a mean way. He literally was problem solving. But the problem he created set off a chain of reactions because, and again, no offense on Ben, he didn't reprint the PO order because that would have taken too long to go do that. And the truck had to go out because of the time slot and. So I'll get off of this story, but this is and so now this has created this funnel of not matching invoices, cash, and the customer is short paying. And now there's not a customer resolution because there is no process to resolve the customer's short pay. There's no process to say, hey, we didn't get this product. Great. We'll quickly resolve it, get it in there, so on and so forth. Yeah. You can think of, and I think what always broke my heart, as you even talked about with Carla, it was not people acting with misintention.
Yeah.
It was them doing what they felt was the best. And the reality is how can you make that simple so they're not forced with that decision and or the impacts of said decision can quickly be mitigated. So this doesn't blow up to be a bigger thing than it needs to be and spend inordinate amounts of time fixing something that just is not a good use of everyone's time.
All right, here's another one. This one I went to a finance conference. I heard this one maybe 10 times in 2 days. Let's call it Brian. Guy is up front talking about how they fixed their process. Brian stands up and says, hey, wait a second. You're telling me to call someone you can get your contact sheet right. What happens when the contact is a portal? What happens when the portal, though, they want 2-factor and it goes to our phones and again, goes to Nancy? Nancy's on vacation. The portal issue was a real thing. And especially in this industry where you're selling to a pretty concentrated group of really large customers who have automated all their payments. Yeah. It's not like in a $100 million company, you're calling a person. You actually have to go through a portal process. And so when a dispute arises, there is no one to call. And so how do you unwind that? That's a real problem too. And then, you have your data doesn't sync with theirs. How do you even look at that?
Well, and you don't know that. I mean, how many times people are like, well, we emailed the accounts payable at blankety-blank.com. And it's and no one responds. Well, why do you keep emailing? I mean, but there's not a number to call. I mean, we deal with this in customer service.
There's no escalation path, right? And it's about having the escalation path.
So we just keep doing the same thing, hoping that someone's just behind on emails. They're catching up. I'm I don't know that we have the right contact.